Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I agree. It's a cracking report from Gareth and his team,
It's so
as usual.
helpful.
And I'm delighted to see that your visitor numbers, both domestic and overseas, are rising in the wake of some terrible decision-making over COVID, which affected everybody in the country. So that's good news. I should disclose that my brother is responsible through his Madrid company in making the Diplodocus that sits outside the Natural History Museum, a business called Factamate.
Yeah.
So he did that using digital technology. The focus of my questions is on the set of new priorities which you introduced in July 24, which were growth and good jobs in every place, richer lives with choices and opportunities for all, a more socially cohesive country with an inclusive national story. So I was interested, who did that come from the DCMS or did that come from the Minister?
Yeah, from the Secretary of State.
It came from the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Because as it says here, in January 26, given that you hand out 484 million to these 15 institutions, or you did in 24/5, I think I'm right in saying January 26, unless you tell me differently, you hadn't clarified how you intend to assess whether the museums and galleries are delivering against those three priorities. So has that been clarified yet?
So the framework agreements, as it says in Figure 10, those relate to the core objectives that we've already talked about, and that is the basis on which we've been giving them the money. These objectives, the priority outcomes, we've been putting into the chairman's letters. So each year, alongside all the things we've already talked about, we also write to each chairman or chairwoman to set out a whole series of common factors, including these sorts of things, but also some particular things for each institution. And so we have been telling them about that, and then we are doing our own work across the whole of DCMS on how we're going to measure these priority outcomes. Because as you can see, they're quite general. And so, for example, on jobs, of course, it was great to see the recent press on V&A East and what that has done for the Stratford area, and it may well be in some places that these institutions do drive direct growth, but we want to make sure that we ask them some specific things so that we can measure it.
So are they clear on what they need to do? Because presumably you will skew your grant funding to those who actually deliver on your objectives. I mean, you are, after all, the master, and they are ultimately receiving gifts. So is it clear to them? From your answer, I'm not sure it is entirely clear to them.
They know about these priorities, but we haven't said to them, therefore you need to do this number of jobs over this time period, or this is the definition of social cohesion. So that we're going to come back to all of our arm's length bodies, and it's part of the wider work DCMS is doing on its outcome delivery.
I mean, just to look at them, I mean, growth and good jobs in every place, well, that's verbal baby food. Richer lives with choices and opportunities for all. I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to hire people on merit or through ability? I mean, I'm not clear. I'm of adequate intelligence. I'm not very clever, but that's not entirely clear to me, so I don't see how it would be clear to them. And then you look at a more socially cohesive country with an inclusive national story. Now, our history is our history. Geology is geology. So how does somebody like the Natural History Museum, for instance, change itself to deliver on an inclusive national story? And aren't people coming to Britain because they want to see our history, they want to see our culture, and particularly those foreign visitors who are coming here, do they want to see that interfered with, and could that not possibly damage the visitor numbers if you start messing around with that too much?
There's quite a lot in that. Is it okay if I just break down some of the things?
Well, I couldn't help asking it because I think it's quite important.
I know, understood, of course. So at this point, in their framework agreements, they are delivering against their objectives of caring for the collection and ensuring those collections are accessible on a free basis, because that's the policy decision. We also measure these specific KPIs that are set out in Figure 11 that have been in place for a long time, and we're updating those as we've discussed, and we will publish those once updated later on this year. In terms of the priority outcomes that are set out on page 36, Those are higher levels. So for all of DCMS, we're really trying to use our agenda to drive growth. So for example, the creative industries, we've been doing a huge amount in that space, and we are working out exactly what our metrics are. I think the Secretary of State, if she was here, would be happy to talk about what she means by a socially cohesive country and an inclusive national story. And I think in terms of opportunity, she feels that opportunity is not necessarily spread equally or across the country. So those are high-level objectives. What we want to do is work out specifically how we can allocate them in the museums and galleries context. And that is what we haven't done yet, which is why we're setting them out at a high level in these chairs' letters at present.
Well, I think that's quite important, because it might be her intention, but unless they understand how to deliver against that intention. I mean, it's all very well to have intentions. You're asking museums and galleries to try and deliver against a ministerial wish list, and it's not clear how you're going to judge them. And until you're clear on how you're going to judge them, I'm not sure how you're going to judge against these, what I personally find very difficult to understand priorities. I think there are many more priorities that I would put at the top of the list, but I'm not the minister. However, if you're going to put them there, you've got to tell people how they can deliver what she wants.
Yeah, I think at this stage, we've told them what they are. And they are aware of them, and so, you know, I think they may well be doing things that contribute. What we haven't done is said these are the specific metrics. So obviously once we have those, you know, those will be clear, but they are not at this stage.
But what is an inclusive national story?
I don't think it's...
How do you create an inclusive national story? History is history, isn't it?
Well, I don't think probably I'm going to solve it right now. What I'm saying to you is they have their clear outcomes, and then on this area, we're doing further work.
I would be careful not to damage a model which, as you said earlier, is very successful.
We just move on, just maybe pick up one point there, finally, which I think is an important one about you know, sharing success across the country in these arrangements. Looking at the map here, there are certain parts of the country that haven't got any museums and art galleries that you fund. But we've still got museums and art galleries in Sheffield in my case, but other cities and parts of the country, which occasionally you offer grant aid funding for.
Yeah.
So how do you balance up the funding of these museums with the many other museums if you're actually going to get a better spread and more even spread across the country?
Yes. I know Polly wants to come in on that, so I'm going to hand over to her.
So I think there's a number of things to say. I think firstly, the map you refer to is the sites from our 15 national museum and galleries, and as you say, there are 43 sites in total, 22 are in London, the other 21 across the country. But I think there are overall 2,500 museums and galleries in England, of which 1,500 have ACE accreditation, and those are obviously much more widely spread. The balance for us, which is to get to your question, the 15 we are obligated, DCMS has mostly statutory obligations to support in full, and so that is where a large amount of our focus is. However, it is obviously really important for DCMS as well that the museums and galleries are servicing the whole country. So we have got some buckets of funding to help with that. So I'd point to the MEND, which is the Museums Estate and Development Fund, which we've been running since 2021, and that is capital for museums and galleries, which are not the 15. There's the Museum Renewal Fund, which is because of particular problems some of the museums have had recently. That was 25-26 funds. We've got a museum transformation fund. Again, these are not for the 15, these are for more widely spread museums and galleries. And then finally we've got the DCMF Wolston Museums. We also give money to the Arts Council. The Arts Council spend about £44 million per annum on supporting a national portfolio of about 1,000 organisations, of which about 80 are museums and galleries. So there's more, and that's 200 sites across the country. And then finally, there's also tax relief, and this is all in addition to the money which comes through MHCLG to local authorities, who are the main port of call for the civic museums. So I think that's a very long way of saying we really care about museums and galleries across the country. We have the 15 we particularly focus on. They do things across the country, but there's even more museums and galleries doing things more widely across the country, and we support them as best we can within our limited budget.
And also, just if you don't mind me adding, in Baroness Hodges' review, one of the things she talked about was a new strategic framework for museums, and we've accepted that recommendation because in 2017 there was some work done at a more strategic level, and we think it's about the right time to look at that. So we do want to look at the whole piece, and I think, Hannah, the work is starting on that at the moment.
Right, so out of your total spending on museum and art galleries, how much goes on these 15?
About 25%, including capital.